Trey Hendrickson has received permission from the Bengals to find a trade, and we are doing a full free agency preview looking ahead to what's to come on Monday. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Friday, March 7th edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Of course, the week is wrapping up. Next week is set to be absolutely crazy. It is the busiest transaction week of the year, with the legal tampering period starts on Monday, aka free agency, and we are set to have. Remember last year, I think over 75 signings on the first day of the legal tampering period. So it's going to get quite crazy here around the NFL. Starting on Monday, we still had a lot of action over here happen on Thursday, but on today's show here, we will be doing a little bit of a free agency preview, letting you know some of the players here who have hot markets, who are some names who will do better than you expect, and some other topics over here on the show today. But let's start off with some of the news that happened here on Thursday. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, you're from a different location today. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, apologies in advance for the little bit of the hollow sounding audio. I am in the airport, nooked in between an abandoned store and a wall. So, but that's not the big news of the day. The big news of the day is that Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals has officially requested a trade. The Cincinnati Bengals problems list continues to grow. They do not have a deal in place for Jamar Chase. They do not have a deal in place long-term with T. Higgins, nor a trade partner. And now they have Trey Hendrickson officially saying, you guys are not committing the money that is, needed to be paying one of the top pass rushers. We just saw Max Crosby get a massive deal. He has now put out that request. What can you add to that story?
I mean, we've been following along here on this Trey Hendrickson situation, and really the entire Bengals situation for a number of months now, just since the season was coming to an end. Even during the season, we knew this was going to be a very, very difficult situation for the Bengals. I was actually on Check the Mic with Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson here yesterday on their show, and we talked about the situation before the news came, and I mentioned the door is open a little bit for a possible trade here with Trey. And the reason I said that is because, the Bengals have been negotiating with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, who happen to have the same agent as well. And those negotiations are also a little bit far apart. So there's more work to do over there. But their focus has been on those two receivers. And Trey Hendrickson has been a little bit on an island over here on his own. And while there were offers that came in, they were well below market of what he's supposed to get. I kind of started to get this feeling that maybe, just maybe, Trey, who requested a trade last year, might request a trade again. And this time, they might crack the door open a little bit. So on Thursday, Trey Hendrickson on his own went over to Cincinnati, met with some of the top members of that personnel department, and basically told them, listen, the pass rush market right now is out of control. We saw what Max Crosby just got, and they saw those final numbers. We know Myles Garrett might have a new deal, and TJ Watt is going to get a new deal in Pittsburgh. And you have Aiden Hutchinson and Micah Parsons and maybe Danielle Hunter in Houston. Like, the pass rush market is crazy right now, and the offers you're making me over these last 2 years do not reflect the player that I've been for this organization, not just as a player on the field, 35 sacks the last 2 years, led the league this past season, second in defensive player of the year, a great man off the field, in the locker room, everything he's done right, one of the best free agent signings in that organization's history. But here I am, I'm so underpaid, 1 year, $16 million left, and you're offering me stuff that just doesn't make sense. So he went into the building and they were like, you know what? We are kind of far apart over here. We almost never do this. We never get rattled by trade requests, but we respect you a lot. And we really like the fact that you have not been going out there in the public and making a whole big deal out of this. And you've been saying all the right things. We're going to let you and your agent go out there and try to find the trade partner. Now, the Bengals are not just going to trade him. Like, they're not just going to do that and say, oh, we got a 4th round pick for this guy, let's move on. They're going to want some significant and real value over here. And listen, all 1st round picks are valued differently. Like, if you are, I don't know, the Giants, you're picking number 3. If you're the Commanders, you're picking 29 or 30. So obviously every pick is different, but they're going to be looking for a very high draft pick over here, or a combination of picks, in order to move on from Trey Hendrickson. And there's been some reports out there. I would keep an eye on a team like Washington, Indianapolis has his former defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, and I think their GM, Chris Ballard, knows that he needs to win this year if he wants to really retain his job after kind of surviving this past year. The Falcons will be mentioned. The Panthers will be mentioned. Like, there will be teams out there who would be interested in Trey Hendrickson and also would be willing to pay him a significant contract that makes sense for a player of his stature over here. So this could take some time, but the fact that the Bengals went to this extent is significant for an organization that over the years, whether it's Jesse Bates or T. Higgins or Carson Palmer or Carlos Dunlap, there have been many players over the years who have requested trades, and the Bengals are like, go take a hike. We're not doing it. So the fact that they're allowing Trey Hendrickson is a big step of here. But now the question becomes, is there a team that will fairly compensate the Bengals? And is there a team out there that will fairly compensate Trey Hendrickson to make this all work? Keep this in mind as well. The Bengals, there's been a lot of pressure from Joe Burrow about keeping all these guys. Sam Hubbard just retired. That defense last year really was just not in a good place. Joseph Asai is going to be a free agent. BJ Hill, another player who's on that roster right now, whose situation is up in the air. Like, they need defensive players, and they have a new defensive coordinator coming in from Notre Dame. But the point is, they really need players over here. So again, they're not just going to give up on Trey Hendrickson. They're going to need some real value over here, and they still prefer to keep him. But the offers to this point have been borderline disrespectful, I would say. And now they're at least giving him a chance over here to see what the market is going to offer him. And if there's a team out there that's willing to pay him and the Bengals and make it make sense for all sides over here.
Well, like you mentioned at the top of the show, the legal tampering period, aka the beginning of free agency, starts on Monday at noon. There's going to be a lot of moves. There's still some guys that we're seeing trickling in through the cuts, the cap casualties, guys like Joey Bosa. Names are still going to be continued added to this list. What would you give us as a good primer here for what we should expect on Monday, and maybe some of the names that could come off the board pretty early?
I mean, we're going to obviously do another episode of a year on Monday morning, and it might be outdated really quick, but let's go through some of the names over here in free agency and what people around the league and agents are talking about over here as we get ready for Monday. And we'll start off the quarterback market. Aaron Rodgers is out there. I do believe the Giants stuff is real. The Giants have been really looking at all the quarterbacks over here, but I think that could be an option out there. Sam Darnold has been talking to the Vikings about a short-term deal to go back there. It'll be a bit of a Baker Mayfield type of contract if it were to get done, where he's there for at least 1 year with real guarantees. Then there's an out in the second year potentially where they could go to JJ McCarthy, but we'll see what his market is over here as well. There's a team like, I don't know, the Raiders, the Steelers, the Titans, the Giants. Do they get involved as well? The fact that he's still talking to the Vikings tells me maybe he doesn't have the market that he was expecting over here in free agency. The Steelers have been adamant they're going to bring back one of their quarterbacks, whether it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. The belief around the NFL for a number of weeks now has been Justin Fields has a better shot than Russell Wilson. But that's kind of the quarterback market over here. I think Daniel Jones, surprisingly, could have some interest over here as a bridge guy, whether it's in a Cleveland or joining Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson, maybe going back to Minnesota if Sam Darnold leaves. So that's the quarterback market. Everyone loves talking about the quarterbacks, but that's the market over there when it comes to the quarterbacks. The positions over here that are kind of hot, I would say, I'm going to start with the safeties on the back end. Last year, the safeties, there were so many of them, and it kind of was a bit cold. This year, I think the safety market is actually going to be rather hot. The guys who I think are going to do really well, Raiders free agent safety Trevon Moehrig, I think he's going to get a huge deal here in free agency. The Raiders will like to retain him. Pete Carroll, we know how much he factors in the safeties. Remember Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas in Seattle. So they would like to keep him, but there are a number of teams out there, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Colts. They're all in the safety market over here this offseason. That also goes for a player like Cam Bynum, who I think will have a great market. Javon Holland should have a really good market. So these are all players over here who I think are going to do really well once free agency opens. The same could go for the cornerback market, which I think the veterans out there like a DJ Reed, a Carlton Davis, Byron Murphy, who I know Minnesota wants to retain. I think Minnesota is going to retain either Byron Murphy or Cam Bynum. I don't think they'll be able to keep both of those guys. Both of them have great markets, but the corners I think are also going to do well. Paulson Adebo, the New Orleans cornerback. It sounds like he has a pretty good market as well. So the cornerback market over here on Monday, when free agency officially opens, also should do pretty well. Some other names over here who I think are going to do exceptionally well here on the open market. And again, this is very fluid. Things could change. Right now, we're recording this on Thursday. There's still Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and of course, Monday when everything officially could start. But things could change. But the linebacker market, Nick Bolton, the Chiefs free agent market, he's going to get somewhere in the mid-teens, wherever that is. I know the Chiefs would love to retain him, but there is competition over there for him. Jamie Sherwood, the linebacker from the Jets, former late round pick, started 16 games this past year, had a career high in tackles. He was the team MVP voted by the players in that locker room. I think he's going to have a really good market. 8, 9, 10, $11 million per year could definitely be in play for a player like him as well. We saw Zach Bond go off the market at $17 million per year. That definitely helped players like a Nick Bolton and a Jamie Sherwood, who should be top linebackers here on the market. Bobby Wagner still going strong, one of the very best linebackers in NFL history. Commanders would love to have him back. He represents himself. He doesn't have an agent. The money talks. Pete Carroll in Las Vegas would love to have him as well. We mentioned on yesterday's show that the Raiders would have loved to bring in Zach Bond if he became free. The Eagles retained him, so that's not happening. But Bobby Wagner, I think the Commanders would love to have him back, but his former head coach in Las Vegas would also like him as well. So that could be a market as well that should do really well. Then defensive tackles, Milton Williams, the Eagles free agent tackle. I think he's somebody who could do well as well over here on the open market. I know he's been trying to get to that 20, 21, $22 million per year. I'm not sure if he'll for sure get there. I think he's aiming to get there. I've heard the Patriots involved with him. I've heard the Panthers involved with him. There are teams over here that could be very interested in a player like him as well. Tershawn Wharton, the Chiefs interior defensive lineman, who's really good, underrated in the run and the passing game. He's someone also who could get into that 10, 11, $12 million range over here in free agency. Some other names we're looking at: Josh Sweat had an amazing year in Philadelphia, was all over the field down there in the Super Bowl in New Orleans in that win over the Chiefs. He's a player who I think will do well. He switched agents over to Drew Rosenhaus a couple of weeks ago. He's aiming to get into those 20s. I know there is some concern out there with a potential injury that he's been dealing with for dating back to college, I would say, but that is something that teams have been monitoring. But I do believe he should do well over here on the free agent market. Khalil Mack, the Chargers will love to bring him back. He's another name out there that if you're a contender and you believe you have a chance to win a Super Bowl, Khalil Mack would like to go to you and might take a little bit less to come back to you. But the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz, their GM, they have been trying really hard to bring him back. And of course, they just moved on from Joey Bosa. So they obviously would love to keep one of those pass rushes. And the pass rush they're targeting is Khalil Mack. And then the offensive line, I think we got a bit of an indication of what the league thinks of this when we saw Joe Thuney get traded and Jonah Jackson, was going to get cut anyways, get traded, and the Bears took on the full salary of a year. The free agent market, especially on the interior, is not so strong. The guards, I would not say there's a gigantic market out there. Will Fries, Mekhi Becton, they could do okay or well here on the market, but probably the centers have a better shot of doing well in the market. Drew Dahlman, the Falcons free agent center, missed some time with an ankle injury. I think he should have a good market. I think the Bears, who need a center, would make a lot of sense. Josh Myers, the Packers free agent center, I think he'll do well. Then on the offensive tackle side, Ronnie Stanley in Baltimore. There have been some negotiations, but I know there are some teams who are very interested in him. The Patriots, I think, will be interested in him. The Chiefs, who need a left tackle, will be interested in him. So if he makes it to the open market, he should have a good market. Played every single game this past year for the first time in a long time. He's up there in age, has dealt with injuries. There's been a bit of an issue, but it's hard to find left tackles in football. And right now, he is scheduled to be a free agent. One more name I'll mention over here: Jalen Moore, the 49ers offensive tackle. Probably not a household name. You probably have not heard that name much. He is a guy, left tackle, who I think could do well here on the open market as well. He has been more of a backup there in San Francisco behind one of the greatest ever in Trent Williams. He did play 4 or 5 games this past year because Trent was out. And the film, from what I'm hearing from teams, was really good and impressive. And they think he could be a starter in the NFL. The 49ers are not going to retain him. He's somebody who could get into those double digits and be a starting left tackle for a team here this offseason. So those are some of the names over here. We didn't even mention the receiver market, which is absolutely insane right now. We saw Christian Kirk, who was supposed to be traded, who was supposed to be released, I should say, got traded to Houston here on Thursday, 7th-round pick. Instead of getting cut, they just give something away for him. But the receiver market, their veteran receiver market, is absolutely stacked right now from, Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs and Keenan Allen and Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks, Hollywood Brown, Darius Slayton, Elijah Moore, Mike Williams, De'Ami Brown, on and on and on. There are so many guys in the veteran wide receiver market that it was surprising, honestly, on Thursday where Tutu Atwell got 1 year and $10 million fully guaranteed. That is great news for these receivers, but I could see some teams being out there like, these guys are asking for too much. We're going to pivot to somewhere else. So the interesting position to watch come Monday is going to be the receivers, where it's like, will that market be moving, or is it going to go really, really slow because there are just so many guys out there and we're not going to pay so much money when the supply and demand does not match over here? So that's a bit of a free agent primer of what's to come over here. We'll do another episode, of course, here on Sunday night, comes out Monday morning, previewing what's to come over here at noon Eastern on Monday when the legal tampering period officially begins. There will be way more information that I'll have as well for that episode. But for now, that is some of what has been going on around the league. People talking about who's hot, who's not. I will say this as well. This is one of the weaker free agent classes we've had in a long time. There are no names out there that are, 7 teams are going to be bidding on. Like maybe the safeties, we have that, but like a lot of these guys, there's like 2-3 teams maybe bidding on them, and we'll see where it goes. So it's not the craziest free agent market. I think we'll have way more trades coming up over here as well. The trade market should continue to be hot, but that's kind of where we are over here with the legal tampering period for agency officially kicking off on Monday at noon Eastern.
Make sure you guys hit subscribe. That's all I got to say.
As you can see, Ben at the airport trying to limit his words over here. But yeah, we will be back over here on Monday morning, like I said, going through everything. And like Ben said, subscribe over here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast platforms, I would appreciate if you go over to YouTube for a second, hit the subscribe button, watch us over here. And if you have us on podcast as well, go give us a 5-star rating or review. All of that definitely helps. And enjoy the rest of the weekend and get ready for some craziness, madness, all of that coming up over here early next week. Make sure you're following on X at My Sports Update. Turn on those notifications if you have not done so yet. And we will see you all over here on Monday morning. See you then.